The summer sun blazed mercilessly over the bustling streets of New York City. It was one of those days where the heat seemed to shimmer off the pavement, making the air thick and oppressive. Street cleaners in their bright orange uniforms worked tirelessly, sweeping up the remnants of the city's chaos, discarded coffee cups, stray wrappers, and the endless tide of litter left behind by hurried pedestrians. Um, Among them was Harold, a middle-aged man with a weathered face and kind eyes. A street cleaner for over 2 decades, Harold took pride in keeping his corner of the city tidy, even though it was often a thankless job. Today, however, the heat was taking its toll. Beads of sweat poured down his face as he pushed his broom, his movements slower and more labored than usual. "Take a break, Harold," one of his colleagues called out as they passed him. "Can't," Harold replied with a weak smile. "Still got this section to finish." Nearby, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, catching the attention of a few passersby. Out stepped Barron Trump, the youngest member of the famous family, dressed in a crisp white shirt and khakis. Despite his towering height, his demeanor was humble and unassuming as he scanned the area. Barron was on his way to meet with a community organizer to discuss a project his family was supporting, an initiative to plant more trees in urban areas to combat the effects of heat waves. He had insisted on walking the last few blocks to the meeting, wanting to experience the streets he often saw from the windows of his car. As Barron strolled down the sidewalk, a commotion caught his attention. A small crowd had gathered near the corner, their murmurs of concern rising above the usual city noise. Intrigued, he quickened his pace. When he reached the scene, he saw Harold sprawled on the pavement, his broom lying beside him. The man's face was pale, his chest heaving as he struggled to breathe. A few people stood nearby, unsure of what to do. "Someone call 911, a woman yelled, fumbling with her phone. He needs water," another voice added. Barron didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, his commanding presence parting the crowd. "Excuse me," he said firmly, kneeling beside Harold. "Let's give him some space." Harold's eyes fluttered open and he looked up at Barron, his vision blurry. I'm fine," he croaked, trying to sit up. "No, you're not," Barron replied gently but firmly, placing a hand on the man's shoulder to keep him from moving. "You're dehydrated. Just stay still." Barron turned to the crowd. "Does anyone have water?" he asked, which startled both people and me. Um, you know, who's a young boy handed over a half-full bottle, which Barron carefully opened and offered to Harold. Um, Take small sips," he instructed. As Harold drank, Barron pulled out his phone and dialed for an ambulance, explaining the situation with calm precision. The crowd watched in awe, many recognizing him but hesitant to approach. Uh, "Isn't that Barron Trump?" someone whispered. "I think so," another replied. "Wow, he's actually helping." Mm. Barron ignored the murmurs, his focus entirely on Harold. "You're going to be okay," he assured the man. "Help is on the way." Trebled, "Miss Cat?" Harold managed a weak smile. "Thanks, kid," he muttered. "Is Barron," he corrected with a grin. "And you're welcome." The wail of sirens echoed down the street, signaling the arrival of the ambulance. The crowd parted as the EMTs rushed to Harold, their efficiency swift but compassionate. Barron stayed by the man's side, answering questions from the paramedics as they worked to stabilize Harold and load him onto a stretcher. "Thanks, kid," Harold murmured as he was lifted into the ambulance. His voice was weak, but his gratitude was evident. Barron gave him a reassuring nod. "Take care of yourself, Harold," he said, using the man's name to show respect. "I'll check on you later." The ambulance sped away, leaving the crowd buzzing with admiration. Barron, however, seemed unfazed by the attention. He dusted off his hands and turned to leave when a woman approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me, Mr. Trump," she began. "That was incredible. Most people wouldn't have stopped to help." Um, Barron offered a modest smile. "It's just basic decency," he replied. "I'm glad I could be there for him." As he walked away, word of the incident began to spread. Videos of Barron kneeling by Harold's side quickly surfaced online, gaining traction across social media platforms. The youngest Trump was trending by the end of the day, with hashtags like Barron helps and acts of kindness going viral. Later that evening, Barron couldn't shake the image of Harold's exhausted face. Despite the paramedics' assurance that the man would recover, he felt a lingering concern. Deciding to follow through on his promise, Barron asked his assistant to find out which hospital Harold had been taken to. Whoa. By nightfall, Barron was sitting in a modest hospital room where Harold lay resting. The man's face had regained some color, but he looked surprised to see his young savior walk in. "Barron," Harold said, his voice filled with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Barron shrugged. Um, I wanted to make sure you were okay. How are you feeling?" "Better, thanks to you," Harold admitted. "The doctor said it was heat exhaustion. Could have been worse if you hadn't stepped in." Barron pulled up a chair beside the bed. "You've worked as a street cleaner for a long time, haven't you?" Harold nodded. 22 years. Not the most glamorous job, but it's honest work. Keeps food on the table." Mmm. Mmm. uh, a flicker of curiosity crossed Barron's face. "Do you have, family?" Um, Harold's expression darkened. "Not anymore," he said quietly. "Lost my wife to cancer a few years back. My daughter moved to another state, trying to make a life for herself. It's just me now." I Barron was silent for a moment, taking in the weight of Harold's words. He felt a pang of empathy for the man, recognizing the struggles he had endured. "Well," Barron said finally, "you shouldn't have to do it alone." I the next day. True to his word, Barron took action. He arranged for Harold to take an extended leave from work to recover, covering the man's wages out of his own pocket. He also connected Harold with a social services organization that could provide ongoing support. Um, but Barron didn't stop there. He used his platform to bring attention to the plight of street cleaners and other essential workers, highlighting the challenges they faced and the lack of recognition for their efforts. Um, his message resonated deeply, sparking conversations about dignity, respect, and kindness. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a powerful example of empathy and leadership. The moment Barron Trump helped Harold marked more than just an isolated act of kindness. It was the spark of a movement that would ripple far beyond the small park where the street cleaner collapsed. Barron's heartfelt response resonated with millions across the nation as the story gained momentum. Social media platforms flooded with praise, news outlets covered the incident extensively, and hashtags like essential heroes and dignity for workers began trending worldwide. For Barron, however, it wasn't about the fame. Sitting in his room late at night, he scrolled through comments and messages from people sharing their own struggles as essential workers. A single mother juggling 3 jobs, a janitor with an untreated injury, a truck driver unable to afford his child's medical bills. All these stories weighed on him. This is bigger than just Harold, Barron thought. There's so many Harolds out there. Determined to make a difference, Barron reached out to his family for advice. Though he had access to resources, he wanted to handle this in a way that genuinely addressed the problem rather than just throwing money at it. A new idea takes shape. 2 days later, Barron invited Harold over to his family's estate. Harold, still recovering but deeply moved by the invitation, arrived in his best suit, feeling both nervous and excited. Um, Harold, I need your help, Barron began as they sat down in the sunlit garden. Harold blinked in surprise. What are you doing? He said. My help, Harold asked. But you're the one who saved me. Barron smiled. I didn't save you, Harold. You've been saving yourself every single day. What I did was open my eyes to what's really happening out there. And now I want to help others like you. But I can't do it without understanding what people in your shoes need the most. Harold hesitated before speaking, but when he did, the words poured out. He talked about the long hours, the lack of health care, the dangerous working conditions, and how most people treated him like he was invisible. What hurts the most, Harold added, is knowing my kids think I'm a failure because I can't give them the life they deserve. The old Barron listened intently, jotting down notes. By the end of their conversation, he had the blueprint for what would soon become a life-changing initiative, the Essential Heroes Foundation. Launching the foundation. Within weeks, Barron's plan took shape. The Essential Heroes Foundation was designed to address the key issues faced by essential workers, providing financial aid, healthcare support, and educational scholarships for their families. It also aimed to elevate public awareness about the value of these workers in society. The foundation's official launch took place at a public event in the same park where Harold had collapsed. A massive stage was set up, and the area was packed with supporters, workers, and media personnel. Harold stood by Barron's side, visibly emotional, as Barron stepped forward to address the crowd. God. Today, we celebrate the people who keep our world running, Barron began, his voice steady but passionate. From street cleaners to delivery drivers, janitors to construction workers, they are the backbone of our communities. Yet, too often, their hard work goes unaddressed. Barron paused, scanning the crowd. That changes today. The Essential Heroes Foundation is here to ensure every worker gets the respect, support, and opportunities they deserve. And it all starts with one simple idea: seeing them, truly seeing them, just as I saw Harold that day. And the crowd erupted into applause, many wiping tears from their eyes. Harold's journey forward. For Harold, the foundation's launch was a turning point in his life. Through the foundation, he was offered a new role as a community advocate, helping to connect other workers with resources and support. Harold hesitated at first, unsure if he was qualified for such a position. I've been cleaning streets my whole life, Harold told Barron during a private conversation. I don't know if I can do this. Barron placed a hand on Harold's shoulder. Harold, you've been a hero every day, even when no one noticed. This isn't about qualifications. It's about heart, and you've got plenty of that. Encouraged by Barron's faith in him, Harold accepted the role. He quickly became a beloved figure in the community, using his firsthand experiences to advocate for workers' rights and inspire others to take pride in their work. The ripple effect. The foundation's impact extended far beyond Harold's story. Across the country, essential workers began sharing their own stories of resilience, finding a newfound sense of pride and solidarity. Companies partnered with the foundation to improve working conditions, while schools incorporated lessons on the value of essential workers into their curriculums. The movement also inspired individuals to take action in their own communities. People began leaving thank you notes for delivery drivers, tipping janitors, and organizing fundraisers for workers in need. It was a cultural shift, a reminder that kindness and respect could create lasting change and, a Christmas surprise. As Christmas approached, Barron planned a special event for the workers who had benefited from the foundation. The event, held in a large community center, featured a decorated Christmas tree, gifts for children, and a warm holiday meal for everyone. At the end of the evening, Barron stood up to speak. "This foundation exists because of all of you," he said, addressing the crowd. "You are the reason this movement started, and you are the reason it will continue to grow. Thank you for everything you do." As the crowd cheered, Harold leaned over to his daughter and whispered, "That's the boy who changed our lives." And I have so much more to say in that marriage, but the reason I want to speak to that is um, I want you to know that I was very grateful that we were separated. Varen overheard and smiled. "No, Harold," he said, "you changed mine." The Christmas event marked not just a celebration, but a solidifying moment for the Essential Heroes Foundation. Word of the event spread like wildfire, with videos of Barron's speech and Harold's heartfelt moments going viral online. News anchors lauded the initiative as a turning point in addressing the plight of essential workers, and even political leaders began to take notice. But for Barron, the most meaningful part of the event wasn't the media coverage or the accolades. It was the quiet, personal interactions he had with the families attending. Um, I say I learned about a tragedy, and, with Harold's family's new beginning, Harold's children, shy at first, approached Barron during the evening to thank him personally. The eldest, a teenager named Marcus, nervously said, "Thank you for helping my dad. He's happier now. We all are." Barron crouched down to Marcus's eye level. "Your dad is a hero, Marcus. He works hard every day to make sure you and your siblings have a better life. Always be proud of him, okay?" Um, Marcus nodded, his eyes glistening. For Harold, seeing this exchange was a moment of overwhelming pride. It wasn't just about the financial help or the new role. It was about his children seeing him in a new light. Acts of kindness across the nation. The foundation's success inspired others to take similar actions. Stories began to surface of communities organizing their own essential worker appreciation events. In one town, a local grocer offered free groceries to janitors and cleaners for a month. In another, a group of college students pooled their resources to provide heating systems for elderly workers during the harsh winter months. One particularly touching story involved a group of children who wrote thank you letters to their school's cleaning staff. The notes, filled with colorful drawings and heartfelt messages, became a cherished collection for the workers. Barron, seeing these stories, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "It's not about me," he often told reporters. "It's about creating a world where everyone, no matter their job, feels valued and respected." A new year, a renewed purpose. As the new year approached, Barron held a press conference to announce the foundation's next steps. Among The initiatives were plans to expand healthcare access for essential workers, create scholarship programs for their children, and launch a mentorship network connecting retired workers with younger generations. And we're just getting started, Barron said during the announcement. This isn't just a charity, it's a call to action. I want everyone watching this to ask themselves, what can I do to make someone's life better today? His words resonated deeply, sparking a renewed wave of grassroots efforts across the nation. The Essential Heroes Foundation wasn't just a program, it had become a movement, one that was reshaping how society viewed and valued essential workers. Harold, next chapter. For Harold, life had changed in ways he never imagined. His new role as a community advocate not only provided financial stability, but also gave him a sense of purpose. He began traveling to other towns and cities, sharing his story and encouraging workers to take pride in their contributions. At one event, a young girl approached him and said, "My dad's a janitor too. He works so hard, but people don't always see it. Thank you for showing them how important he is." Harold knelt down, tears in his eyes. "Your dad is a hero, sweetheart. Don't ever forget that." Barron's reflection. Back at home, Barron sat by the fireplace, reflecting on the journey so far. His mother walked in, a proud smile on her face. "You wish you did is Ramadan. You've done something incredible, Barron," she said. Barron shook his head. "It's not about what I've done, Mom. It's about what people like Harold have been doing all along. I just had to open my eyes." His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes all it takes is one person to start a ripple, and you've done that." As the fire crackled, Barron gazed into the flames, thinking of all the Harolds out there, all the unsung heroes who kept the world moving. He made a silent vow to continue the work, knowing that the journey was far from over. A legacy of kindness. The Essential Heroes Foundation became a lasting legacy, transforming lives and shifting societal attitudes. But for those who attended the Christmas event, the moment that stayed with them the most wasn't the speeches or the gifts. It was the simple, quiet kindness of a young boy who chose to see a man like Harold not as a street cleaner, but as a human being with dignity and worth. Barron's actions reminded the world of an important truth: no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. And sometimes a single act of compassion can ignite a movement that changes the world.